Hello everyone, it's Shy Guy 768. Welcome to another deck tech series, or another episode in the deck tech series. I'm going to be going over my Progenitus deck. It's a 5-color deck. It's got a surprising theme. No one expects what this deck is, type of thing. So let's just go over Progenitus first. Progenitus is a 5-color 10/10. He has protection from everything. He's a legendary Hydra, and he casts for a white, blue, black, red, and green. So 2 of every color, and you get a 10/10 pro everything. And if he would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, shuffle him into your library after you reveal him. He's just there because he has access to all 5 colors, and he's just a bomb. He wins the game when he hits, and that's all we need. So we'll set him over here, and we'll get to the land base. Alright, so the land base is as follows. So we run Evolving Wilds just to get any of our basics out that we need at the time. Ink Moth Nexus, just a artifact when we need it, and a creature that can chump block if we need it to, and also it's a creature that deals infect damage, which is also very useful. And then we have Academy Ruins, which puts artifacts from our graveyard to the top of our library, so recurs our artifacts. And this is a very artifact heavy deck, so this really comes in handy when things die. So now we have Reliquary Tower, just basically to keep our hand size at 7 or above 7 most of the time. Mostly above 7. That's what this is for. Then we have Command Tower, the staple land. Just makes any color. It has no downside, no nothing. So always gotta have a Command Tower. Then we have Eye of Ugin. Eye of Ugin is interesting because it makes Eldrazi cast for 2 colorless less. And it has an ability that you can tap 7 and tap this to search your library for a colorless creature card, and reveal it and put it in your hand. Then shuffle again. So this is basically just to help cast the Eldrazi, but if we don't cast the Eldrazi off of it, it at least searches for another colorless creature, which we could go get the Eldrazi with. But it's not always a thing. This is just basically there for its second ability, just to be able to search for any creature we want in the deck, basically. And we have Command Beacon, which puts our commander into our hand from the command zone if Progenitus, say, gets put back in the command zone once. He'll cost 12. That's a whole lot of mana to cast a commander for. So this really comes in handy if we want to make him 10 again. Now we have Temple of the False God. Just taps for 2 colorless mana if we control 5 or more lands. Now we get to the non-colorless land. So I run several different kinds of land in this deck. They're not like all of one thing or whatever. It's kind of mixed, but it being mixed makes it work a lot better. A lot of the focus is on blue-black, because most of artifacts are blue, and then there's also a strong black strategy in here too. So we run Drowned Catacomb, and we run Isolated Chapel, Watery Grave, which is a shock land, Godless Shrine, which is a shock land. Then we run Graving Cairns and Wooded Bastion, which are the only 2 filter lands I have. But the filter lands are amazing in EDH. They create 2 mana off of 1, and they also tap for colorless mana. So they are perfect for the New Era Eldrazi, and to just create, a colorless mana if you don't have a mana to spend to make 2. So we got those, and then I run all 5 of the Shadows over Innistrad land. You can get a look at them there. And then I have all 10, well, no, not all 10. I have 8 of the 10 Pain lands. So we have a Dark Waste, Brushland, Sulphur Springs, Underground River, Carpulsion Forest, Shivan Reef, Yavimaya Coast, Llanowar Wastes, and that's all that I run of those. Then we get to the basics. I run 2 plains and 6 islands. So there's 3, 4, 5, 6. And I run 4 swamps and 4 mountains and 1 forest. Basically, the forest is just in there just in case people get rid of my green sources, and I at least have a basic that I can go get. That's literally the point of the entire land base, is basically just protecting myself from, if any of my non-basic lands get killed or anything, I at least have the pain land and the right amount of basics to make it through. So that's why the 1 forest. I used to have 1 plains, but then I changed it to 2 because hitting cards like Sorin that you'll see in a minute and Open the Vaults is really important when you're in late in the game or you're early in the game to cast Sorin, for instance, and you need white mana and you can't get it anywhere else but through the Pain Land. That's why I added 2 basic plains, because it makes it a whole lot easier to get that off of like Evolving Wilds and the creature's abilities to search for basics and things like that. So that is the land base. Now let's get to the artifact mana. The artifact mana is quite big, quite a big section in this deck. So we start off with Mox Opal, which is a 0-cost artifact metalcraft. That's if you have 3 or more, control 3 or more artifacts. This you can pay, or you can tap it for its ability, and it taps for 1 mana of any color. Perfect in this deck because we run a ton of artifacts. And then you have to have Commander Staple Soul Ring. We have Springleaf Drum to create more mana. Thought Vessel for the no max hand size. Other than that, it doesn't really matter. Then I only run the Dimir Signet just because I said blue and black are 2 of the most of the strongest colors in the deck. So that's why I have Dimir Signet and none others. Then I have Chromatic Lantern, which fixes the entire deck so that no matter what colors you need, you'll always have it, because if you have this out, they can tap for anything, which is awesome. This is a critical card to get within the first few 5 or 6 turns, hopefully. And if you can, then your game is set for forever. You can cast anything in your deck. You're good unless they kill it, which they probably will, because this is a prime target for removal. And yeah, you got to safeguard this for when you can. You got to safeguard this so that when the things come, you can deal with them. All right, now we have Hedron Archive, which is just there to create more mana. It's just another mana accelerant. It's basically all it is, and it has draw 2 cards on it. Not the best, but it still works. Then the last piece of artifact ramp we have is Thran Dynamo. So this just taps for 3 mana, and it's a 4-cost artifact. It triggers Metalcraft and helps us get more mana immensely because it produces 3 on its own. So those are the different artifacts, at least for mana, in the deck. Alright, so now let's get into the non-creature spells. Alright, so we got Duretti, Scrap Savant, is our main engine for getting things out onto the battlefield other than casting things. This is a very heavy artifact themed deck, like I've said several times. Duretti is important because he can take things from the graveyard and put them on the battlefield. It has like the Goblin Welder ability on it as a Planeswalker ability, and it also gives us an outlet to sacrifice or to discard our artifacts into the graveyard if we don't want to pay their immense costs, such as like Platinum Angel or something like that. I've got Wormcoil Engine off of this, and his emblem doesn't really trigger. I don't really go for it much. It does help, but I just basically have him in here for his first 2 abilities. So that's Duretti. Then we have Open the Vaults, which I was saying. This is another massive return. All the artifacts and enchantments in our graveyard to the battlefield. and really helps this because this is a heavy artifact themed deck, and that's why I added the 2 planes, because this is a double white mana cost, and I can't really get there without the white, so self-explanatory. That's why I put those in. But this is Open the Vaults, very useful in this deck. And then we have Ruinous Path, just creature removal that we can also awaken a land with. I like this. Not too many people play it, but it's good. Next we have Demonic Tutor, which searches for anything in our deck, and especially searches for the Eldrazi when we need them. And like Chromatic Lantern is also important to go grab with this, and Mox Opal as well, things like that. And Duretti and Goblin Welder, all the key parts of the deck to make artifacts work. This is what you use to go search for them. And then we have Cryptic Command, my favorite card to put in almost every deck I run, because every deck I have is blue pretty much. I put Cryptic Command in because it's a four different abilities on one card, and you get to choose 2 of them. So you can counter a spell, return target permanent to its owner's hand, tap all creatures your opponents control, or draw a card. And you get to choose 2 of them, so most of the time it's either a return and draw or counter and draw. The tap all creatures comes in handy when it's not your turn and you want to, or when it's your turn and you want to get through to everyone. So you can kill everyone in one hit, but they all have creatures. You tap them all down with Cryptic Command and you just win the game. So that's Cryptic Command. Then we have Dig Through Time. Dig Through Time is just our another search spell. Search the top 7 cards and put 2 of them into our hands and the rest on the bottom. Pretty good. We can cast it for 2 mana most of the time because we can get rid of a lot of the things that go to the graveyard that aren't artifacts. Like our creatures don't really matter to bring back unless they are artifacts, so we can get rid of those. That's Dig Through Time. And then we have another commander staple, which is Cyclonic Rift. Just bounce everything to everyone's hand. That isn't yours, of course, but the overload cost is what you play this for. I'd hardly ever play it for the basic cost of 1 and a blue. I always cast it for 6 and a blue to overload it and get everyone's stuff into their hand. And then it's basically game over from there. If they have a whole lot invested into the game, then all of it goes back to their hand, and they basically have to start over. Alright, now we have Treasure Cruise. I don't see a lot of people play this. I don't know why, because a lot of the time this card is an Ancestral Recall. Draw 3 cards for 1 mana. Because a lot of the time, like for Dig Through Time, we don't care what we put in exile, because once our regular creatures die that aren't artifacts, we can just get rid of those. And a lot of our instants and sorceries don't come back anyway, so we can get rid of those as well. But drawing cards is always good in EDH. Same thing for Thoughtcast. Just has affinity for artifacts. It only draws 2 cards, though, but oftentimes this will be anywhere from 1 to 3 mana, because we'll have a lot of artifacts on the battlefield. Next, we have Time Reversal. So Time Reversal is just basically a Wheel of Fortune type of thing, but with your graveyard as well. Like, you shuffle... It's sort of like a Wheel of Fortune. You just basically take an extra step and shuffle everything into your library. So you discard... All players shuffle their hands and graveyards into their library, and then they all draw 7 cards. Then this exiles. But this is just so important because some people can have the best hand in the game, and then, you're just going to lose because of their insane draws. So this helps negate that and helps you get to a better state to win. Next we have Time Sieve. So this is part of a combo, sort of a combo, with Thopter Assembly. So Thopter Assembly will make 5 Thopters every turn if you don't control any Thopters besides Thopter Assembly. But you won't control any Thopters besides Thopter Assembly because you'll sack them all to this. So how it works is, when this is out, you tap it and sack all 5 Thopters, and you take an extra turn. Then your next upkeep, you get 5 more Thopters, so you can sack them to this and take another turn. And you just keep going like that, and this just creates infinite turns. Next we have Sorin Grim Nemesis. Now this is important as well because of all the varying mana costs in the deck. A lot of them are 6 and above. So anything that he hits off of his +1 will deal that to every opponent in the game. So in EDH, this guy's insane because he'll hit not just one, but all 3 or 4 or however many players you have playing in a game. They'll hit everyone except for you. And that's awesome because you can hit like a Blightsteel in this deck and ping everyone for 12 and basically win with him alone. And he also has 2 more abilities that are also useful. You can deal damage to something and gain life, and then you can put tokens on the battlefield equal to all the highest life total among all the players. So I think this card was built for EDH, and that's why we play him. And now we have Maelstrom Nexus, the only 5-color spell in the deck. Just basically says the first spell that we play each turn cascades. So that basically can just reveal anything that's 4 or less mana and put it on the battlefield for free whenever we cast our first spell. So like if we cast Sorin, for instance, so we cast on him and say we reveal Sensei's Divining Top off the top. Well, we can play that for free. Put that on the battlefield for free. Maelstrom Nexus is insane because if we cast Blightsteel Colossus, which is the most expensive thing in the deck, and then we hit another an Eldrazi off of it, then that's just like pure value. So that's why we run Maelstrom Nexus, because it cascades into a whole lot of stuff that is like either going to win us the game or is going to help us a lot. So we are on Sensei's Divining Top. This is just basically to filter through our deck and decide what we want or don't want. And this also helps set up Sorin's top 1, or +1, sorry, and helps us to be able to ping people for the most amount of damage every turn. And also helps us draw cards. Relic of Progenitus is next, just basically to get rid of someone's graveyard or everyone's graveyard. And that's basically the only reason I run it, is because you can, the person that's flashing back their spells, or the person that is dredging or, resurrected stuff from their graveyard, you can use this to get rid of it. Next we have Cranial Plating. Since we have a lot of artifacts in the deck, we can put this on any creature we want, and it just gets insanely huge. That's the only reason why I play it. Other than that, it's not too big a thing other than the instant speed attaching. This only comes out when we have more than like 6 artifacts on the field, because once this hits the field, they're going to try to kill this as quickly as possible. So I only want to do it if it's going to put the most amount of power on the creature as soon as possible. So that's why I run this. Alright, now we have Mesmeric Orb, which basically says whenever a permanent becomes untapped, that player mills the top card of their library. So that means land 2. So like, and this also includes you. So every turn, everyone's milling a whole bunch of cards, and this will really help to, get rid of people's strong cards somehow, like through milling, and helps. If you were trying to mill them out, it could, but I wouldn't recommend it. Also, it helps to get through your deck a little bit quicker, find the stuff you need. You can use this and Sensei's Divining Top to kind of, set up what you're going to do and things like that. So we run Mesmeric Orb. Then we have Lightning Greaves, another staple. Just basically makes a creature have haste and shroud. Nevinyrral's Disc, just a board wipe. Door to Nothingness. This is a fun win condition. It's just there for fun. If you pay 2 of every color and tap and sacrifice Door to Nothingness, then target player loses the game. So if you're down to 1-on-1 in a 4-player commander game and you draw this and you happen to have all 10 colors or all 5 colors but 2 of each color, then sacrifice this and you win the game. It's just a fun little card I threw in just to, have some fun with the players. Tamiyo's Journal is next, so this creates a clue every upkeep, and we can stack 3 clues to search our library for any card in the deck and shuffle our library. So it's a demonic tutor on an artifact, which is awesome because we can return artifacts all day, and having a demonic tutor that we can use whenever we want is awesome. And now we have Spinavish Saw, just a removal spell that never dies pretty much. It just goes right back to the hand when it dies. Then last but not least of the non-creature spells, we have Karn Liberated. One of the best planeswalkers ever. He's one of the only colorless planeswalkers ever as well. But the basic reason I run him is because he can exile a permanent. Once he comes in, and exiling permanents is awesome because it's removal for anything. If their land is causing trouble, you get rid of the land. If their artifacts are causing trouble, you get rid of the artifacts. Also, it gets rid of cards in their hand as well. And then if you somehow get to the ultimate, it restarts the game, and you get everything that was exiled with him, which is awesome. So there's Karn Liberated. That's all the non-creature spells in the deck. So let's move on to the creatures. Alright, so the creatures we have, like I said, a lot of them are are artifacts, but a lot of them also aren't artifacts too. Well, some of them aren't. There aren't too many that aren't, but some of them are not artifacts, which helps us get through Delve and things like that I've already said. But first we have Goblin Welder, which is just basically Duretti's second ability. Won't explain it again, but yeah, just another way to get creatures from our graveyard that are artifacts back onto the battlefield, or even our Spinavish Saws, or well, not the spine because it'll go back, but like Chromatic Lantern if it gets killed and things like that. So there's Goblin Welder. Then we have Ethereum Sculptor, which just makes our artifacts cheaper to cast. Then we have Baleful Strix, just a flying death touch blocker that draws us a card. Then we have Etch Champion, the best blocker ever because it has protection from all the colors if you have Metalcraft, which is not really hard to get in this deck because, like I said several times already, this is a very heavy artifact themed deck, and oftentimes this can just block anything that anyone throws at you. And then we run Solemn Simulacrum to search for basics. It's like a commander staple at this point. And when he dies, he also draws a card, which is useful. Then we run Mole Drifter just to draw cards, and it's a flyer that can also be useful. Then we run Steel Hellkite. Just a dragon that can pump itself, and then it can get rid of things as well once it hits. Then here's the other half of the combo with Time Sieve, Thopter Assembly. So like I said, at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control no Thopters other than Thopter Assembly, you can return Thopter Assembly to its owner's hand and put 5 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature tokens with flying onto the battlefield. So this just makes the combo work, and that's why both of them are in here, because that's like a win the game combo. And then we have Sharding Sphinx, which makes more Thopters. Whenever an artifact you control deals damage, or an artifact creature you control deals damage to a player, you may put a 1/1 Thopter with flying on the battlefield. And it's a 4/4 flyer itself. That's the only reason I play this is because it goes well with Thopter Assembly and Time Sieve. Then we have Simuldrazi. We have Sire of Stagnation, which is just reverse landfall. So whenever a land enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, not your control, you draw 2 cards, and they mill 2. This is amazing because this gives you card advantage and makes them have less card advantage by milling the top 2 cards of by exiling the top 2 cards of their library. And also he's a 5/7, so he can hit in for a lot. That's why I play him. Wormcoil Engine is next. Pretty self-explanatory. This is a really big creature, really good creature that just basically never dies in this deck because you can return him when you can, and you can keep the tokens around to deal with things in the meantime. So that's Worm Coil Engine's just a huge threat, and that's why we run him. Then we have Pentavis. Pentavis just makes Pentavite tokens, and then you can put counters on Pentavis with those Pentavite tokens, and he can just become huge, or he can just make a whole lot of Pentavites. Same thing with Mere Battlesphere, pretty much. He just makes tokens, and then you can sack those tokens and deal damage to things. Then we have Platinum Angel, which says we can't lose the game and our opponents can't win the game. So basically makes the game unwinnable for anyone except for us. So that's why I run it, because it helps us to... This won't stay out forever. People are going to try to kill it as soon as it hits the battlefield. It just basically gives us time to find what we need if we are looking for something, and come up with a game plan if we need to. Then we have Magister Sphinx. It's a 5/5 flyer that when it enters the battlefield, target player's life total becomes 10. So Soren Markov's second ability on a creature. Platinum Emperion's next. Our life total can't change, which really helps us for the same reasons Platinum Angel helps us. And it also is an 8/8, so it can help hit in for a whole lot of damage as well. Then we have Sphinx of the Steelwind. Run Sphinx of the Steelwind because it has a whole bunch of abilities, and they're all awesome. Flying, First Strike, Vigilance, Lifelink, and Pro Red and Green. So the damage spells and the destroy artifact spells can't really hit this. Because most of them are in red and green. But when it goes up against anything, it basically wins because it's a 6/6 first strike. And then we gain life off of it as well. It's a source of life gain if we need it. Then we have Bosch Iron Golem. We can use this just to sack artifacts and throw them at a person's face, basically. So it deals damage to target creature or player. Basically what we'll do is when something's about to die, if we have the mana, we'll just pay the mana and sacrifice that artifact and deal it to them or to one of their creatures. And that's what Bosch is for. Then we have Inkwell Leviathan. Just a big, huge finisher. Island, Walk, Trample, Hexproof. It's a 7/11. The only problem is it's a 9 mana creature. So this is definitely a late game card. And it has Shroud as well. So nothing can touch it, but it takes a very long time to get online. Then we run Desolation Twin, because it creates 2 10/10s off of one cast, and we can also get this back to our hand and do it all over again. So that's awesome. We can create as many Eldrazi as we want. And then we run the 3 big Eldrazi right now. Olamog, Kozilek, and the other Olamog. Olamog, the Ceaseless Hunger, is the one that mills 20 every time it attacks, and when it is cast, you exile 2 permanents. And it also has Indestructible, and it's a 10/10 for 10. Pretty self-explanatory. We like Olamog because he's huge, he does what we want him to do, he gets rid of things, and then on top of that, he just helps us by milling everything, or exile milling everything. Then we have Kozilek, Butcher of Truth. We can't not run these guys because they have Annihilator, and Annihilator is just broken. And the Graveyard Clause is awesome on the bottom there. When it's put into a graveyard, you shuffle it into your library and your graveyard into your library. So it's basically time reversal on a creature, except you don't draw the cards. But yeah, Kozilek is there to draw cards and just be a huge threat, and he's the one that wins the game most of the time. Then we have Olamog for the same reasons. He destroys a permanent, he has Annihilator, and the Graveyard Clause, and also he's indestructible. So it's all the plus in this. And then we have Blightsteel Colossus. Another huge win condition in the deck. It's a 12 mana 11/11 with Trample and Infect. So this is basically how you win. Alternatively than damage, you just deal 10 or more poison damage with Blightsteel Colossus and Inkmoth Nexus. And he also has a clause that says when he would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, you reveal him and then you shuffle him into your library, so he never goes away. So that's the creature base, guys. That is actually the entire deck. I hope you guys enjoyed it. The Commander's Progenitus. Leave a like down below and comment down below saying you liked it. Follow me on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube at ShyGuy768, and keep an eye out for more videos because they'll be coming out soon. But until next time, keep on gaming. We'll see you later.